Hey, thanks for stopping back by to finish up. This is the third part of this video on feminism. And as I mentioned in the previous videos, that the consequences for women who are practicing this feminism, especially those who have embraced it wholeheartedly and are therefore subject to the full depth and breadth of the covenant curses, the covenant penalties. I mentioned that it would be hard for you to imagine exactly what it's going to be like, but I have something that you can take a look at and do a little research on that will give you a little bit of an idea, although it's going to be much worse than that. And that would be if you were to go and do research and watch some videos on what is called Dubai, D-U-B-A-I, porta potty, like the construction site porta potties that they have for people to use for the bathroom. And if you go and do the research on that and watch some of the videos that are available, you find out that there are women who are very attractive, very desirable, who will answer ads that are placed or invitations that are given to very rich men around the world to meet them in Dubai, because the laws are unique there and favor what's going to happen in this porta potty event. And they will go there and subject themselves to things that are just completely degrading and dehumanizing, and get involved in all kinds of sexual acts and things that involve defecating and urinating in these women's mouths and forcing them to swallow, sex with animals, and different things like this. Now, it's interesting because these men use social media apps to identify the women that they want to engage in these disgusting things with. And so, just so you know, social media is your online order your whore service for what's coming when America is conquered, and when the overthrow and destruction happens, and all these men will have these women as the spoils of war, and the women will be enslaved. So if you look at it that way, then ultimately the punishment that the women will endure is going to be much greater than the men. The men most of them are going to be killed. The survivors will be slaves, a lot of them doing physical manual labor. But for the most part, the men will not be in relationships with their former girlfriends, husbands, etc. So this abuse will happen to women and children, both boys and girls. And this will give you an idea of what your feminism and feminazi and all your rejection of God's commandments and the king-vassal relationship, and especially the women's relationship to their men in that king-vassal relationship, to submit to men, because so few have kept their covenants, then there is going to be a penalty for that, and this is what's coming. So if you go research that out, then you see that these women are doing these things for, upwards of $50,000 for a night or two, maybe the weekend, and then they get to take that money. It's theirs. They go. But it's not that simple. It's not just a matter of rinsing out your mouth with some mouthwash or taking a hot shower for an hour. Some of these women who have engaged in these things were so sickened by it that they killed themselves, committed suicide. And this is also what happened back when Adolf Hitler was running Germany, and there were women in his circle that he did the same thing to them, although not to the extent of this Dubai porta potty. but he would defecate in women's mouths and force them to swallow it, to eat it. And there was some suicide as a result of that as well, because that's the most dehumanizing thing that can happen to you. So you can see that the love of money, that there are people who will do anything for that money because they love money so much, and they love being a sexual object and the desire of men. But the joke's on them, because these men, $50,000 is like you or I spending a penny. So it's nothing to them, and they get to debase these women beyond measure. And it is literally amazing that women would put themselves through that, but it's a very common thing. It happens in all kinds of walks of life, in Hollywood, in supermodels, and this is how these people become rich and famous and get modeling gigs or singing gigs or actor gigs of what it is that they want to do to become famous and wealthy. And so watch that, and then imagine how disgusting that is, and then try to picture yourself in that situation. Not that you're going to be given $50,000, but once they own you, once you are the chattel and the property, when you've been enslaved by the conquerors and you are the conquered, this will be your job on a daily basis. And for some people, it will be an ongoing, throughout the day event where there is no let up. Now you may think that, okay, the more beautiful are going to likely go to the ones who are more rich and more powerful, and that may translate into less of a punishment than the women who aren't rich and famous and beautiful. It doesn't matter, because if you really do the research, these rich people, these rich men, are buying up the most beautiful women that they can find, and then it's not just what they're doing, it's they oftentimes invite their friends, their male friends, and their pets, so their pets can have sex with these women, and they all do it. And to make matters even worse, they'll use laxatives to make it easier for the men to defecate into the women's mouths and all over their faces. So the rich and famous and beautiful may end up actually having it worse. But nevertheless, this is the fate for the feminists, for the feminazis especially. And this is what's going to happen to you against your will. You will become a sex object, and it will continue until there is some event that triggers the end of the world as we know it, the second coming of Yeshua for the bride. But make no mistake, you are not the bride. You will never be the bride. You will be the abused sex slave. And I may have mentioned in one of the other videos that I've talked to a lot of women, and when I try to explain this stuff to them, and I don't even go into this much depth because they're usually so sickened and disgusted by the idea that they're going to be forced into any kind of sex that they ask me to stop. But their response is always, well, I'll just let them kill me. Make no mistake, they have no intention of killing you. They have every intention of sexually abusing you the rest of your life. And that goes for the children, boys and girls alike. Whatever orifice you have, they will fill it in some way, form, or fashion for their own entertainment. And it's not going to be pleasurable for you. You're not going to make a penny off of it, and that will be your lot in life. And such is the result of feminism. Such is the result of broken covenants. Such is the result of failing to submit to your husband if you've got one. And if you don't, such is the result of your failure. Such is the result of you being able to find a man who has these covenant blessings of protection and taking on his last name, getting married to him, like I was talking about in the previous video. So these are the things that you have to look forward to. And it's horrible to think about it, but this is what's going to happen. You've been warned. Now you know. It's going to be worse than you could ever imagine. Worse than you're going to find out from watching any of these videos or doing any research. It's happened since the dawn of time. You can also do some research on the comfort women of World War II or forced prostitution, and you'll get some better ideas of what's involved and how it's going to play out to some degree. But when I say you can't imagine, you can't imagine. You won't be able to imagine. So, long story short, that's not something you want to do. Feminism is not something you want to be involved in, especially now. We are getting closer and closer by the day to the destruction and overthrow. Every day there's more talk about the economy tanking, about China invading Taiwan or going to war with the United States. And I'm going to touch more on this in other videos, but you're being set up. There is an orchestrated plan, and you are being set up. You don't realize it. Most people don't do any kind of research at all. They listen to the talking heads that are all part of the deception. So if somebody's trying to pull the wool over your eyes and deceive you, the last person you want to ask for advice is them or any part of their group. Yet, that's what people do. And they give up all their information so that your future captors, your future conquerors, know best how to trick you and how to fool you and how to suck you into the deception and delusion that will result in these covenant penalties, these covenant curses. And it's going to happen. There is no escaping it. There is no turning back. Americans have irretrievably broken their covenants, and now the covenant curses and penalties are certain. It's just a matter of how quickly things will happen. And thankfully for us, God is a God of mercy, and he's going to wait until the last minute, until there's no possible way that we're going to change or do anything different, or that we'll be able to repent enough to alter this. And then it will happen. All the destruction will happen. There are angels waiting now to reap down that destruction, and they're questioning God, Father, as to why he's waiting. And we'll explain a lot more of it, because this is not just a simple 1 or 2 hour long process. This is going to take hours and hours and days of making videos just to cover the basics. And once that's done, we have to keep going back and around, over and over the material, and digging deeper and applying it more to what's going on. So these are some of the things that you need to know that are going to happen. Now, what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to insert a little bit of a movie review by Jonathan Cahn. And if you don't know who Jonathan Cahn is, he is a Jewish rabbi gone Christian. And so he is literally a rabbi, a Jewish rabbi, but he's been converted to Christianity. And so he's kind of like the born-again rabbi. And he has just a great amount of knowledge and understanding of how Hebrew understands and interprets certain things, and what some of their sayings mean, and what some of the scriptures mean according to the Hebrew interpretation of that, and the events surrounding the holy days and the festivals and those things regarding the parables and different things. So he's a pretty good wealth of information as far as all things Hebrew and understanding that. There's a couple of things you need to know before we watch his review, and that is that the ancient gods and goddesses, those that are the pagan variety, throughout time have come to be known by different names throughout different cultures, and this is all related to the times of Nimrod, when God confounded the languages, and instead of there being one language, it was confounded into 70 different languages, And I think in the world today we have well over 100 languages. So at the time, let's say Nimrod, who was the cause of this happening. Nimrod was known as Nimrod, but he also had 69 other names that he was known as. For example, Osiris and Odin. And you look at all the mythology, and that's not really mythology, that's written history. And the reason why people believe it's mythology is because it's all these different names of the various pantheon of gods telling similar stories. Well, the reason they have different pantheons of gods and different names is because they all had 70 names. So your group went off, and let's say you're the Egyptians. Now your god, Nimrod, is no longer Nimrod in your language, it's Osiris. Ishtar is no longer Ishtar, she's Isis. And so all those Nimrod and Nimrod and Ishtar, now each had 70 different names depending on which language you spoke. And every time there's another language added, there may be another name for those gods. So instead of being 70, there may be 120, 140, and I don't know how many languages there are. But whatever it is, that's the reason why. So the different stories associated with them changed depending on what culture, what society you're in, and how they had those stories handed down over time. So who they're related to, how they're related to one another, varies from culture to culture. So in this particular case, we need to look at this from the perspective of Lilith. Now you'll see in this review of the movie Barbie that Barbie started out with the name of Lily. Lily is just a shortened version of Lilith. So you have to look at this from that particular basis. And also I'll put in some pictures of sex dolls that were used anciently, and you'll see that Barbie is basically a sex doll that was used anciently for different fertility rites and as a dildo. And so we'll add these things in here as we go along, and then I'll provide a little bit of commentary at the end. So let's jump into the review right now.
The separating of man and woman in this movie is not an accident, any more than it's an accident that one of the Barbies in the movie is actually a transsexual, or that Barbie alludes to gay masturbation among the Kens in a movie aimed at children. What kind of culture pushes this on children? A sick culture, but it goes deeper. And here's the reveal, and it's there at the very opening of the movie. It's all there. The movie opens up with a scene of girls playing with baby dolls. The narrator says that since the beginning of time, girls have played with dolls. But, note the word but, leading into the idea that there's a problem in this. What is the problem? She says, but the dolls were always and forever baby dolls. Always and forever. Baby dolls are now a problem. And they were an endless, relentless, interminable problem. Just as important are the visuals. The girls are shown with dolls caring for them as would their mothers, holding them, nurturing them, feeding them, combing their hair. And interestingly, the girls appear unhappy, somber, or miserable, as if they're engaged in an act of slavery that they're forced to be part of. Which is interesting because the scene depicts girls playing with dolls. Note the word playing. You play because you want to play. It's something enjoyable, something you want to do, fun. But the film inverts that and depicts the play as slavery, another subtext of radical feminism. And something else. The opening is taken from Stanley Kubrick's science fiction 2001, A Space Odyssey. That opening. What does that opening scene focus on? Apes. Look at the apes here as they wake up. So the girls now wake up. So now the little girls are put into the place of apes. It's not an accident. It's not incidental. It's central to the scene and to the message. The girls are as apes. In Kubrick's film, the apes represent the primitive. So in Barbie, girls who play with baby dolls are represented as primitive, unenlightened. In other words, motherhood is primitive. Women as mothers, mother and child, it's a primitive, unenlightened, negative state. Again, the doctrines of radical feminism. In Kubrick's movie, to answer the primitive state, an object appears, a monolith, an upright, rectangular stone slab. The apes are puzzled, disturbed, in awe. It's there to change them away from their primitiveness, their lowly state. So to answer the primitive state of women, as in motherhood, an object appears as a monolith, but it's Barbie. She stands above them as a colossal goddess or a towering idol of a goddess, and she's there to transform them from their primitive state, linked to motherhood. In 2001, the apes cautiously approach the object, touch it, and back away. In Barbie, one of the girls, or primitive ape people, cautiously approaches the object, just like the apes, touches the leg of Barbie, and backs away. In 2001, the effect of the object is to transform the ape away from primitiveness, apeness, into enlightened apes, and the enlightened apes use bones to kill other apes. But in Barbie, the effect is even more profound, because in Barbie, she winks at them, the girls are mesmerized and transformed by her spell. As the ape lifted up the bone to kill an animal or an ape, the one girl lifts up her baby doll that she's been caring for, and what does she do? She smashes the baby doll against another baby doll, and against the rocks, the head of the baby cracks open, explodes. You see the decapitated head of a baby against a rock, just as the ape smashed the bone into the head of a dead animal carcass. And so the baby's head is decapitated while another baby is smashed into it and onto the ground. And in every direction is an explosion of flying baby pieces. In 2001, the ape throws his stick into the air. So the girl then throws into the air, the sky, the baby, to transform it into the words Barbie. This is the opening of the movie Barbie. It's all there in the very first scene. All that you need to know about the movie, it's all there. It's all exposed. With all its sugarcoating and pink colors and smiles, this is the ultimate spirit behind the movie. And we're going to go even deeper. We're going to expose it with something even deeper. I'm going to come back to this scene at the end, but understand it. We have to look at the mystery of Barbie. Where did she come from? Where did she, what's her origins? Well, the word Barbie means stranger or foreigner. Where did Barbie come from? Came from another land. She came from post-war Germany. She was taken from a German doll named Bild Lily. Her first appearance is a character with a fortune teller. Bild Lily was a form of a sex doll. She was even sold in sex shops. Parents considered her inappropriate for children. She flouted sexual morality. She was depicted as a sex worker, a prostitute. So Bild Lily came to America in the form of Barbie. Look at the two. Look at the pattern of Bild Lily's clothing. Now look at the pattern of Barbie's clothing when she first appeared. That's how she first appeared. It's the same outfit you see in the goddess-like image of Barbie at the beginning of the movie. You see it in the first image of Bild Lily. Yes, Barbie was based on a prostitute. Now let's go even deeper.
The full-length review of the Barbie movie by Jonathan Kahn has got a lot of good stuff in it, so I would recommend watching that in its full length. And, some other stuff that he does is usually pretty good stuff, so you can't go wrong watching his stuff. Anyway, I'm going to show on the screen now a picture, a side-by-side picture of the Barbie that was originally fashioned after the Bild Lily. Now, the Bild part, that first part of the name, is the name of a magazine where it was originally a sketch, and then from that sketch, from that cartoonish character, it was transformed into the sex doll. And the reason why I'm showing this is because this is a ancient drawings here and depictions of what were known as Egyptian teraphim, that were used in sexual rites and as a dildo. And you can see how, if you look at these pictures here, they were very tapered so that they could, easily and smoothly go inside of a woman's vagina, where the feet especially are tapered down rather than sticking out like a normal foot would, because that would obviously cause some irritation. So you can tell by the tapered feet and by the way the body is tapered up to about the armpits. That would be the part that would be inside the vagina. So these were made to the dimensions that would allow for this to be used as a sex toy, a sex doll. And anciently they were used for those purposes, and also infertility purposes, where if a woman couldn't get pregnant, she would use one of these teraphims as a dildo, much like the Barbie we see here and the ones of today, that were fashioned after the deities, the gods and goddesses. And it was thought that that would give them extra fertility so they could get pregnant. Now, you may be thinking that, well, in today's world, the feminazis, the feminists, don't really want to get pregnant. They're trying to avoid that by having abortions and using birth control, etc. But there is a large number of women in the world, especially here in the United States, who intentionally get pregnant so that they can go to abortion clinics and perform a satanic ritual in the killing and the offering of those children being killed in the abortion clinic to Satan for whatever it is that they're wanting in return. Quite often, in order to get something from Satan, you have to be willing to sacrifice a human. And so a lot of women do this. They go in and they have the abortionist or a pagan high priest who perform the abortion and the sacrifice at the same time. So just because the more obvious feminists want to kill babies, the truly satanic women want to get pregnant so that they can offer a sacrifice to Satan. So it all ties together, whether it's they want to be free of having to raise a child or having anything to do with the child or become a mother, or if they're doing it for the purposes of a ritualistic satanic sacrifice, blood oath sacrifice. It's pretty much the same. But anyway, you can see here that these pictures and these sex dolls were used for that very purpose anciently as well as they are today. So the bottom line here, the takeaway from this, is that feminism is rooted very much into satanic practices and in trying to defile, not trying to, but actually defiling the covenant between God and his children, and especially that covenant relationship between a woman and her man. And so these are the things that are going to cause these great judgments, these great curses and penalties to come upon the women, particularly here in the US of A, because there are more covenants with the people living here in the United States than other countries. So it all has to do with the covenant. If you don't have covenants with God, then you don't have to worry. Unfortunately, everyone here in the US of A has covenants with God and probably have no idea that they've got them, but nonetheless obligated to keeping them, and nonetheless going to suffer the covenant penalty for breaking them. So I'm going to wind it up here because there's so much more to tell. We'll probably be mentioning these things in other videos and trying to tie everything all together with all the other elements that are going on that are leading to the overthrow and destruction of America, which will actually happen. There is no getting away from it. It is a judgment that is only being prolonged because of the tender mercies of Father in giving us every opportunity in the world, but it's not going to happen. So there's no way to avoid it. All the people who think there is, that we can save America, we can build back better, make it great again, all those things, it's all a pipe dream. It's not going to happen. Never going to happen. And most of those people telling you that are all part of the deception, just for that very reason, to give you a chance, even if it's just a splinter of hope that things could return to what they once were, so that you'll procrastinate the day of your repentance. They're just sucking you in. The sooner you can figure that out, that the whole world is just one delusion, and if you were deluded, you wouldn't know it. That's how good the delusion is that people are so deluded that they don't think they're deluded. And you are. So, anyway, stay tuned. If you find this stuff interesting, share it with other people, and maybe we'll see you back again on another video. Take care.